And if you can sell that, all your income goals, and you can put it on, on the drip, on non-indemnity, and it creates cash flow, and it is literally like the silver bullet. If you fix this, we then have the money and the time to be able to invest in the tech and the software and we can generate more leads because we have more money. And you can end up making, and I always find this, an example of when you know it's right is you maybe do less mortgages, but you make 2-3 times the amount of money. So you have more time, but more money. It's kind of a win-win.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk FS. Today I'm joined by Ash Borland, a financial services specialist in marketing, sales and business processes. Ash is a dedicated business coach and consultant. He prioritizes building business growth for financial services professionals and is focused on helping those grow their businesses and unlock full potential. Today, we'll be exploring the 3 C's of clarity, consistency, and creativity, and building an online community. Ash, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ryan, thanks very much for having me. Really excited to do this.
Fantastic. So for you, when we look at, your content and what you put out there, a big piece is about community. Why is it so important for advisors who want to build their businesses, particularly through, marketing methods, to have a community?
Well, because a community in general is this idea that if you don't have a community, you've got nobody to sell to. So on that question with this, I'd say, first of all, there's 2 types of communities. Community within obviously the FS, being surrounded by people, and then community within like what you do. So like B2B and B2C. Just to clarify, which one do you want me to go down, or go down both?
I think go down both, really.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely fine. So, because I can talk forever, so I don't want to waste your time on things. So I would say the first thing about being surrounded, community around people who are like-minded, let's talk about that because it's the easiest one. That's very important because the industry is very, very dated. It's been around for a long time. There's lots of people in it. And so if you are trying to, say, generate business, trying to grow your business it's not even the 21st century, it's in this modern online era, you need to be surrounded by people who get that, who are supportive and who want to hold you up. There's a lot of people in the industry that will tear people down and will be negative about these things. And so being surrounded by the right type of people, that's huge. So community there is vital, like absolutely vital, especially if you're going to do any of the 3 C's we talked about before, or it's going to be times where it's going to be lonely. You're going to need that around you. So trying to find a small group of brokers, small group of people who are going on a similar vision to you, really, really important. That's why that's important. Now, if we go to the other side of it, community in regards to people who you're selling to, your community as an advisor, let's say if you're a mortgage broker, it's predominantly who I work with, then having a community is not just like, oh, it's a thing you need. It's necessary. If you don't have a community, you've got nobody to sell to. I mean, that's kind of the big realization. And if you are somebody who is naturally maybe an introvert, or you want to, you're like, oh, I want to, really keep out of the limelight, and I just like to do this job. And I see people do this a lot with mortgage services, where they first come into the industry and they think this is a numbers job, this is like an accountancy type job, and actually it's complete opposite. It's a people job, and you're only as good as the community you have around you. And it is where I see many advisors, especially for the first couple of years, fail. Or really struggle. But even I work with advisors who've been doing it for 10 years, 15 years, and they still have a very small community. They're not really connected to who they're plugged into their local community, or could be, if it's a niche, it could be a community of anything. So if you work specifically with doctors, or you need to be plugged into it, because if you don't have the community, you don't have the clients. It's quite simple. Now, stop me at any point, Ryan, because I can talk about anything and ramble off and take us all over the place. That would be, for me, the 2 reasons why community is such just massive pillars of everything you have to do to be successful.
And on that first community, there'll be often a misconception or a myth that, well, I don't want to build a community of like-minded people who are offering the same service as myself because it's in fear of competition. How do you overcome that whenever you're faced with it, with those who are worried about my colleagues and my competitors?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one, because it is, at the end of the day, with mortgages, your colleagues are your competitors. There's I find with the way I deal with that is there's a kind of excitement and kind of gamification to it. I think you have to look at it as, first of all ships rise in a high tide. Everybody's going to be able to get their business. Secondly, competition, a good bit of friendly competition never really hurt anybody. I think that's a good thing to do. But I do think it is about finding what I've seen, having been this for a long time now, is about finding the right type of community. Because there are communities, not people individually, but there's communities that are more negative fostering, and then there are communities that are more positive. And I think it's something I've been really obsessing on recently, is like who you surround yourself by. You have to be very, very careful, because I do find within the mortgage industry that quite an insular certain type of people who are like, we know it all and everybody else doesn't. You actually want to be around people who are growth minded, open minded, and who are willing to help people. And I think a big sign for that is like, are they are they, are they being kind? Are they being nice? Are they willing to help you if you have a problem? If they are seeing you as a competitor, or they're pulling down other people publicly, or that's probably a sign that's not a good one. And there's so many wonderful communities in our industry, just finding the one that fits. But you don't want to be part of the problem. And if you feel yourself that way, change it and get in with the people who are more uplifting, because absolutely 100%, when you have a good, just don't have to be a big, but a group of people, WhatsApp group or whatever, or just to be able to talk to, it can make a huge difference into how you execute, just massively. And that's something a coach can't do. Like, I can help people one-to-one, but you still also need those people around you that are doing the job and actually doing it, not just a coach telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. So a person to go to, but also a bit of inspiration at times as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And you mentioned in one of your earlier answers that it can be quite lonely. I think from talking to you and looking at your content, you often work with more self-employed advisors typically.
Yeah.
What is it typically that self-employed advisor is facing when they come to you, and how do you sort of help them through that problem?
Yeah, of course. So like I work with people all over different not sectors, but different different sizes of firms. But my bread and butter and what I'm actually excel at, and where my I'd say the lion's share, 80% of my clients are, is in this kind of what I call one man band, one woman band business. And they're normally going to be turning over anywhere from say 70 to 100,000 or more, but like kind of in that ceiling of they've proven they've done the job well, they can do the job, they know how to get leads, they know how to make a decent income, but they don't really know how to systemize it and maybe run a business from it and maybe get their life back. That's my not just ideal client, that's who I work with, and that's who I'm best serving, because I'm that guy. Like, I'm that person myself, I'm that guy. I have a lifestyle business, I work from my home, I have kids, but I was that person. That's my ideal client. And they come to me normally with those kind of main problems of like, I know I'm good, but what do they say? It's like they're doing a lot of hard work and a lot of guesswork, but they actually really just need a framework, and it will make the rest of it go away. You can make a choice, and I love those things. It's hard work and guesswork is all right, but a coach can take you and move you to actually follow a framework that can make them reach whatever level of success they want to be. Now, that can be different for anybody, and I think that's the loneliness. Sometimes it is loneliness. It is lonely as a one-man band in general, I think. But the success is different for everybody. It could be they come in at that kind of income level. It might be, I want to maintain the same level of income, but just work part-time. It might be though, and I've had this where I want to go from doing like say 110,000, 120,000 to like 3, 4, 500,000, which is hard work if you're a one-man band. It's a hell of a lot of processes in place. It's doable of people who do it. I don't know if it's a lifestyle business at that point, personally. I think, but it all comes down to what you want. But that's their main problems when I see them come in. And I know it's not just when I work with them. I get messages from people every day, because I've got a waiting list and I can't work with everybody. I'm very open and to helping people on DMs. And it's always the same questions. It's, once you've established yourself as an advisor, I think that's when it gets hard, because then you kind of become a victim of your own success. And I think it's an interesting situation to be in when you're making good money, but you're definitely working hard for it and feeling burnt out and feeling tired, and you don't really know how you got those leads, but you somehow did. So you're doing something right, but you don't know what it is. Is that unconsciously competent kind of situation? It's a really tough place to be. I think it's a tough place to be mentally. It's a tough place physically. It makes you very tired. And that kind of is where, it's not saying I'm a guardian angel. No, not at all. But that's where I would normally meet you and be like, okay, cool. How can I help you there? But Yeah, and I think that's common for most people. It's probably common in your line of work as well, Ryan. You probably see people in that exact situation because it was the same for me when I was a mortgage broker. But it was also the same for me when I did this as well. You know, when I set this up, I hit the same ceilings we all hit, where you have to go, okay, I can't figure it out on my own. I need to change something if I'm gonna or something that's gonna break.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, really. It's those individuals do hit that ceiling and they think it's a ceiling. It's interesting you mentioned there, it's often actually putting processes in place more than anything is the key to unlocking that next level, really. It sounds obvious, and when you're in the moment, often you think, no, I've got good processes, but you've really got to reflect, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, very few people I've worked with a few who have really good processes, but very few, to be honest. Like when I meet them, there's a few people who spring to mind. He's been on the show here, Lewis Shaw. He's one of your kings. So Lewis, I worked with Lewis for a bit, but the truth of Lewis was when he came work with me, he's a slick machine, that guy. So I remember being like, wow. Like, so there's very few people that I've met that are like Lewis, where it was like, I was like, yeah, I don't know how I can help you with that. Like it's really good. But most people aren't. Most people are busy fools. And like I said, there's that fewer people that I've met that have been that way. I can mention them. That I can actually recall the one. But it is a very it's I think it's a really hard. As you said, processes fix most things. And people also, I know it's going to be a bit counterintuitive. You guys in recruitment, but recruitment is phenomenal. But it's not the first step for many people. And I'd be interested to hear your take on this, Ryan, because I find people go, I need help, so I recruit. What they do is they bring people on, and without processes, it's just a mess. They don't really know. They're just going, I'm hoping this person can somehow deal with my jumbled mess of that I've got going on. And then they don't. And then they moan that the person isn't very good and that they're not. And I'm like, well, how can they be good if they've got nothing to follow? And so a lot of the time, until like I said, I meet people at that point. I don't think you should think about recruiting, but I'm a big advocate of recruitment. I'm a big advocate of building a team, even in a lifestyle business. But I think you need to have the process in place and fix that and see what's possible on your own. And then you get that real cash flow in, and then you go, great, now what's possible when I bring people in and just tell them to follow the same processes. And I think that's always missed. And that's where you meet people. I've got an admin. I'm like, what's an admin do? That's not even a real job. Are they a power planner? Are they a customer care person? What's that? Or are they an operations person? What are they? And then a lot of times it's just, oh, they're just the person who's going to do the things I don't want to do. And that's not normally a recipe for success, in my opinion.
Definitely. I think it is those at that sort of 1 to 2 person level wanting to scale. And often they have grand plans to scale to 10. And you're like, well, how quickly? And it's like a year. And I'm like, whoa, that's one person a month. Because it's bringing someone in, even if they come from a similar job, they don't know how you want to do it. And because if you've been doing the job yourself, you've got your own little intrinsic ways of how you choose to do it that aren't written down, that someone comes in and you go, oh, that's the wrong way to do it. And it's like, it might not actually even be the wrong way. It's just not quite how you like to do it. And like you said, unless you have a clear handbook to go, here's the manual of how to do whatever we do within the business, it's difficult. I know myself, I'm included in that. When I've been on longer holidays, like a 2-week holiday or something in the past, there's some things that I mainly do within the business. I've literally had to, before I go on holidays, I've written a document. It's called How to Do Stuff Ryan Does. And I break it down with, if this needs to happen while I'm away, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
But that takes time to build. And so if you are recruiting someone, you have to think all about that to be able to bring them in. And I think the other thing that I think sometimes business owners or people in this situation who are wanting to scale, but they're quite small at this stage, is they associate profit incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carl Roberts mentions this quite a lot. I know he's like an accountant and, he's got like courses and stuff on, how to structure your business more effectively. But often, for an advisor, if they're saying earning 70, 80, 90, 100 grand, they're like, well, that's 70 grand profit because that's what the bottom line is. Well, no, it's not, because if you need to still be paid. And if you want to recruit someone, you need to pay them. So when you then factor in what you're going to pay them, what is then your true profit? And I think that's sometimes the bit that people who are recruiting for the first time don't understand, because
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they see all this money going out and it scares them.
And then they cut it, and then they it's I mean, you said something that I'd love to kind of double click on a minute, is like you said, um, about like that they have these grand plans of like growth. And I see this a lot. And I actually had one of my clients, and I love him to bits, so I won't say his name because he's gonna say, he'll know he'll know if he listens to this. And he got on the call with me. We first met. We worked together about a year now, but when we first met, and he was like, I'm gonna scale this business. He's 2 years in. He's hit his first six-figure year. And he meets me and he's like, Ash, my goal is to have 5 advisors by the end of next year, and we're gonna have this, this, and this. And I won't say his name, but I said, mate, you can't even manage your diary. You're on this call to me telling me that you're stressed out because you can't, you're working till midnight all the time. You can't manage your diary. How on earth do you think you are ever going to run a business? And I don't mean that they can't run it. I don't mean that. But what I do mean is sometimes we have to, and I see this a lot. There's two types of people. People come in and they think they're going to do this one thing, but what that is a dream. It's a dream. And what we need is a plan and a goal to get there. And this is where this whole the other type of person is someone who doesn't believe in themselves and they're actually really good. And you go, and they're less common, but you do meet them when you're like, you're way better than you realize. Like you could easily go. But what you find a lot of times is this where this business brand versus personal brand comes in, which I'm not so sick of talking about, but I get asked about it a lot and have done since like 2019, is try and scale things, try and make the unscalable the main thing you focus on first, and then figure out, money will help you figure out how to make that scalable. Not trying to make it scalable from the beginning, and not trying to like think about, well, I can't do that. I need a business brand, not a person. No, have a personal brand, and then figure out later, once you've got more money than you can deal with and better processes, or as you said, now we've got the profit available to reinvest and make this scalable. And if that does mean removing, like you at the operator out, as you as the advisor out of the business, you can do that slowly. There's no amount of money that can't solve those problems, but you have to reach that level of income first. It's a little bit like the David Goggins thing I always love, which is like when people say everyone's so worried about overtraining, but you actually have to train first before you overtrain. So maybe just get up and go and train and then deal with the overtraining problem later on if it ever arrives. And I think that's exactly the issue I see many advisors, I think many people in general, but many advisors are in, especially at that, as you said, that kind of 60 to 100,000. The 60 to 100,000 is a really funny spot because it's a good income and more money than most people will make if they are employed. But as a business, it's not a massive amount of money. As an actual financial opportunity in this industry, it's not a lot either. So it's a really weird kind of paradox, I'd say. We're in this weird situation where it's like you've made more money than you ever made before, but you can double or triple that with some processes in place and maybe a couple of select team members. But then, at the same time, do you want to? And your body's, it's really weird. It's a really weird point. Whereas, and you'll probably see this yourself, once you go over, because you're dealing with more larger companies, once they go over that hump, they kind of, that disappears because now it's like an actual business. But it's that weird middle bit where they feel like they're what they call the income rich is what they are. They're income rich. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and just to jump on that bit, because I see this as well, is where they want to grow by advisors, and you're perfect for this, and we'll cover this in a minute in terms of how to generate leads. Because
Yeah.
when they want to grow and they want someone to join their team, it is then that battle of many advisors join another business because they haven't got enough means to generate clients in their own right. So they need to be part of someone else who can give them some clients. But we then see those business owners who want to scale not willing to share the
Yeah.
referrals they have. And it's a bit like Simon Sinek's, leaders eat last kind of thing.
Yeah.
I then have, individuals come to me wanting to recruit, and I say, okay, well, what lead opportunities you got? I know that advisor needs to self-generate. It's like, well, why should they join you? I can mentor them. Okay, well, yeah, maybe someone might join you because they want some mentoring, but they probably want something deeper than that. And whether it's financial, whether it's the leads that help them take their income
Yeah.
to the next level. And I think that's the problem. If you are going to scale, you have to give up a certain amount. And it's difficult when you're an advisor, you're earning 100% of what comes into your bank account. You've then now got to start giving 50% of that away. Now you're thinking, well, that advisor's got to do double the amount of cases for me to then be able to still earn the amount. Why don't I just do it myself? But you've got to get out of that mindset. Otherwise, you'll never bring people across to grow the business. And so that's, I think, the also bit that they need to overcome. And it's interesting you talk about processes, because that links, it's all interlinked here, isn't it? You've got to build the processes to create more time, to create more leads, that you can't service them all on your own, because you still need to give time to that new person. And I think it's all of that. And if you haven't got all of that ready, you're possibly better off staying in that glass ceiling until you then are ready.
You will eventually do it as well. Like I know for me, it would be about 3 years ago, and I get it. People message me when I put results out and stuff, and I have people know, and they'll be like, "That's not true," and I'm like, "Well, it's because we have a limiting belief on what's possible." Me included. One of the biggest things of me, where I kind of stumbled across this, one of my longest clients, he was at this point where it was like, I can't remember how much he was doing, but it was decent, 60, 170,000 on his own with an admin, and roughly around that. I can't remember his exact amount, but he was at this point. He was like, I need to bring someone on. But and we sat down and we were like, we were on a session. We sat down and I was like, okay, cool, let's talk about it. And then we were going through all his opportunities, and we looked at insurance. And I remember this is where the insurance thing comes in. Is that people don't. I remember I was going through his numbers, and I was like, okay, so you've done this many mortgages, this many things. I was like, how many are selling insurance? He was like, well, out of 10, maybe like 4 out of 10 are taking insurance. Okay, cool. And then we looked at it, and I was like, okay, but if we could get them, and this at the time, it was like, if you can get an average of £75 premium on 8 out of 10, which seems really high, but it was like, if we can get 75 out of 8 out of 10. And I remember writing the numbers and then calculating and being like, that can't be right. That can't be right. And it was like, and so we did it again and again. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like astronomically high, in comparison. Like, and in the end, this specific advisor, his average premium is like 300 and something. He's absolutely smashed, and he now is scaling and taking people on. But what we realized, and that for me, and I was the biggest skeptic of it all at the beginning, but the numbers didn't lie on the calculator. I was like, it can't be that. It can't be that if we can increase our protection, we can make a multiple 6-figure business on the exact same operating system, like you and an admin, that would require 5 advisors or whatever for you to be able to make that level of income. And so that's when I realized there was so many more things you should fix before you bring someone on, because then if you've got a great process on the protection, and that I shift my entire business model into business coaching at that point, because I was like, oh my gosh, we can do this. And it's worked for many, many people since. But the interesting thing is, a lot of it is like, if you can get that and you can do it and the process are in place, well, then when you bring somebody in, you might make 50%. But you're making 50% of an advisor who now can sell better insurance. So now the whole thing rises. So it's that all ships rise on a high tide kind of concept. But what I didn't expect was how much skepticism and actual pushback I've been met by the industry on that. Is like, to be able to say, and to people going like, when I post images and stuff like, that's not true. And I'm like, well, it is true. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The goldmine that we're all sat on, or I'm not, because I'm not an advisor, and neither are you. So we're not advisors, but people listening, that you are sat on is, and by the way, wealth advisors, same thing. Like, we can all sell insurance, and we all need it, and nearly everybody is underserved in it. And if you can sell that, all your income goals, and you can put it on, on the drip, on non-indemnity, and it creates cash flow, and it is literally like the silver bullet. And I had that one person on Discovery call recently, and they were like, I was going through everything with them, talking them through, and they said, yeah, okay, but like, everybody knows just if you fix insurance, it'd be the end, but you've not said anything new. And I was like, well, because I've got all these other things that I can show you, but this is the one thing. If you fix this, everything else, we then have the money and the time to be able to invest in the tech and the software, and we can generate more leads because we have more money. And you can end up making And I always find with this, an example of when you know it's right is you maybe do less mortgages, but you make 2, 3 times the amount of money. So you have more time, but more money. It's kind of a win-win. And at that point, then the ones then when they scale, then they are ones who will. And we haven't seen that yet. And I'm excited. There's a few of them who are doing it right now, who I believe will be the firms that we are talking about in the next probably 5 years time. These ones that people are like, that guy, I'm really excited. There's a few of them out there. I won't say they are because they won't want me to say, but there is a few of them where I'm like, we've took this personal brand scaling this system and then now bringing it to other people within their business, and it's exciting. But I think the glass ceiling on what is possible is has just never really been blown out. And it's not just me. There's people like Gary Waters, Matt Chapman, who are two good friends of mine and clients of mine. But like they're both breaking the ceiling of this too and showing that it's possible. But it's I couldn't get over the level of skepticism behind it by the industry of like, no, 50 pound premium is great. I'm like, but it's not, it's crazy.
I don't know if this makes you feel better or worse, but I've received that skepticism myself many times. So you're not the only one, but it's a downside because the industry shouldn't be like that. I have so many clients that I can think of that when I, sit down and do a real map of where do they need recruitment support, it's the one type of vacancy that I ask their permission to allow me to recruit for when it's unprompted. I say, please let me find you a protection specialist. I don't care that you don't want it. Please let me find you one because you will be so much better off for it. The massive financial element that you're talking about, because it's just money that is just sat there completely untapped because the whole industry has a lack of protection. So it's not like these clients are getting their protection from elsewhere. No. Maybe they're getting it from Compare the Market, but they're not getting it at all.
It's disproportionate. Sorry, I'm going to just jump in, but I'll let you just say one thing. The amount of money you can make of it is disproportionately larger than anything else. Even wealth, it's in like the amount of the ability to get an injection of cash into your business from doing something that's relatively simple to do there's nothing else like it. And I would make hay while the sun shines on it, because I'm sure that loophole will close eventually when a lot of people are selling it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other bit is the doing right by the client. Now, we all know what the FCA, bunkering down on and doing right by the client. There's this real need for business owners, for managers to wake up and realize you've got to be protecting your clients.
It's a win-win-win. That's the bit I love about it. Is there's nothing unethical about it. Like I always say to people this, it's like your job is to, as a mortgage advisor or anything, but like as a mortgage advisor, your job is to get that person into significant debt. That's what you're doing. So with significant debt comes significant risk. And so it is also your job to eliminate that risk wherever possible. And if you can't eliminate it, which you should, then you should reduce it. You should never let the client walk away and accept the risk. Obviously, they can if they want to, but it is your job to eliminate the risk that you've got them, which is substantial because you put them in substantial debt. And so when you're quoting them these really big premiums, 200, 300, 400 pound premiums, people are like, I can't believe that. And you're like, yeah, but that's what it should be when you've got a $3,000 mortgage, or you've got or you've got like whatever it is. If your mortgage is high or your income is high, then it is just proportionate to the level of debt and risk that you have. And I think that's where this weird number of like, £50 a month, or what's your budget? These are all things that we've somehow got ourselves in a rut and not really realized like it's not doing the job right. And I do find with it, if you're trying to see the money behind it, that's when it falls apart. So if you look at the client and you're like, I'm going to make this much from it. Whereas, and I say this to my clients, and I truly believe this. I believe it with when I work with people. If I don't think about the money, I just think about how do we get you to something? How do we do the job you are paying me to do? Or how do they do the job that they're being paid to do? The money will come. But if you chase the money, it will run away. It always does. And I think that and it sounds so cliche, but it is true. It just is true. Like if you do that, you'll win. No client will go, I hate you because you tried to help me. But if they feel like you're selling it because you are trying to sell it, well, then they'll be like, oh, you're a cheesy salesman. So you have to be radically honest and truly believe in it yourself, which I do think is the biggest, which is the whole, like, say, skepticism, which, by the way, the skepticism doesn't bother me. That's always a good thing. I've been met by skepticism in the past, but it's interesting when you watch people's behavior, how they, it just shows that there's lots of other people who are going to eat everybody else's lunch, to be completely
Yeah.
honest with you.
And I remember having a conversation with my team around the time of COVID, saying this is going to be the turn on the protection industry. We're going to see a huge amount of protection. It hasn't come.
No, no.
But surely, if anything, it's made the conversation with clients about protection so easy and so accessible to say, well, what happened to your life during COVID? Did you lose your job? Did someone in your family lose the job? Did someone then get long COVID and was out of work for long periods of time? You know, that makes it so accessible to have the conversation. But I never saw the growth in the industry, and maybe I haven't been watching it as closely. My gut feel says I've not seen that growth in the protection.
It's not. It's not grown massively. Like, if you look at, like, if I look at, like, I have like 54 clients, so there's 54 people who are doing well there. Matt and Gary have similar amounts, they're a bit less, but they do larger things. But again, 3 guys. There's a few others who are doing protection coaching too, but 3 to maybe 5 people can't change an industry. You know, I think it doesn't it doesn't work that way. I think that, you know, like, they're a drop in the ocean in comparison to, a lot of it is culture. You know, it's been these larger companies, David versus Goliath kind of things. These Goliaths kind of companies will just don't believe it, so they don't do it, and it's crazy. It's a really weird thing that hopefully will change. I do hope it changes, because I can't work with any more people, and neither can the other guys. So it's kind of like something's got to give, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to move the conversation on to about sort of generating leads, because we referred to that earlier.
Do our 3 C's, and we've just spoke about recruitment. I love it. That's great. I love all this other stuff, so I can nerd out about this forever, Ryan. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, so leads and generating leads
Yeah.
yourself through marketing, because that's often something that, you know, self-employed advisors particularly need. Even employed advisors could always benefit from leads. Business owners could benefit from more leads, and a lot of your content is around, you know, marketing yourself effectively. Obviously, I know this is a very deep topic, and to go through it in a short space of time might not be doing itself justice. But for you, when people come to you saying, Ash, I want to create more leads, where's sort of the conversation go typically for you?
If they want to make more leads, I don't want to get sucked into the business side of things. Let's say that they want to have more leads. The first thing we'd look at is, how do we fix what they currently have? So I'll gloss that, but that's like, again, we talked about the process, how we maximize what they've done, all the stuff we spoke about. We'd look at their retention. So how do we retain clients? What is our internal marketing towards existing clients? So that's a big one. So that's like email marketing, newsletters, being in contact with them on remortgage times, basic stuff that we know. So are we speaking to them at least once a month, annual reviews, things like that? So internal marketing to existing clients. So once you've got those 2 kind of squared away, and I do think you shouldn't really look at the lead generation of externally until you've done that, because when you've done that, you've plugged a hole in a leaky bucket, so to speak. So, and I do think that's really important. However, let's say that we've done those 2 things. What do we do next? Well, when you're there, now what we have to do is we have to now go out and look for, and this is like, of all of the stuff, modules in my program that I do one-to-one, this is the largest one. So we won't, you know, stop me and pull different threads with everyone you need. But the first thing we'd have to look at is, do we have, I would say, what do you want to stand out for? The brand needs to be fixed first. So there's brand and there's marketing. They're 2 very different things. Brand is messaging. So the very first thing I'd want to do with somebody is go, so what is your brand? Let's work on that. Now, you do that. There's a number of exercises you do, but brand is like, what's your story? Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? How do you communicate that correctly? And a lot of the time, people don't really know this. It's the whole, like, you know, what do you want from this? Money. It's that type of thing. You need to be able to craft some form of solid brand narrative. And these are, they're great fun to do when you work with people, but like, spending time on these. So we need to know, what's your story. Now, your story doesn't mean your life story. No one cares about where you went to school or any of that type of stuff. It's more about, like, why you got into helping people do this thing. And so there's a whole exercise you can do that. We won't go into those because unless you want to, but you can ask me that later. But like, so you work on that. The other part of brand then is like niche. So niche is a funny one because people get real tied up in knots about niche, but niche doesn't need to be, it's not as complicated as people make it out. So all the niche is then effectively, and then 3Cs is part of this too. So you'll understand this. So not niche, but these brands. So the niche bit is effectively, who do I help? And if you've got sales and we've worked on your retention as well, we have a data bank of examples of people you've helped. So your niche is created for what I call a niche triangle. There's 3 parts that makes a niche. What we call demographic, so what they are, data points, things like that, you name, not name, so like age, gender, stuff like that, occupation, income. That's demographic. Then you have psychographic. So psychographic is how they think and feel. So more soft, fluffy stuff, but it's that how they think, how they feel, what their kind of values are. And then you have geographic. And geographic is where they're based, where's the location. Now your niche sits in the middle of those 3. So if you look at the clients you've worked with, this is what we would do together. If you look at the clients you've worked with, what is the average of those 3? What sits in that middle? So you look at 30 clients, 100 clients, whatever many clients you've had, look at the last year if you can or whatever, but 30 is probably the minimum. Where do they sit? And you will find trends. You will find trends that I always seem to work with people in London who are bankers, or not bankers, like city folk who are working finance, who have type A personalities and are very hard, go-getters, fit like really like mindset and all that type of stuff. So that's their psychographic, geographic, like that type of thing. You might be, I work with nurses, female nurses in Yorkshire who are very family orientated. I don't know, like, so that's their kind of like psychographic, geographic, and you'd know this and you'll start to find these out. What's really interesting is your niche is nearly always not what you thought it was. Nearly always. I always say your niche is like Harry Potter's wand; it chooses you, not the other way around. So, like, when you get people go, "I want to work with doctors," and you're like, "Do you know a doctor?" "No, I don't know a doctor." "Okay, cool. Good luck then getting a doctor." It goes back to what we right at the beginning: community. How do you access a community if they don't have any authority to the community? But you have access to a community if you do the right kind of, if you know the exercise. So that would be the first thing I would do with them. So we need to understand their brand story, so their brand story and their niche. And then what we do is look at their product. So how do we package what they offer? So how do we make it a unique product, effectively a market of one? And so you look at things with different wording, different phrasing, I used to do things like ready to move services, and how do you make it different? Only really then on those 3, and this is where the 3Cs falls under these, are you then ready really to go out and generate leads? The mistake that people make is they don't do any of that because that sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. But it is that one. It's the whole. Is it Greg McKeown? I don't think it's Greg McKeown who did the one thing, but the book, the one thing. Have you heard of that?
Heard of, but not read it.
Yeah,
or
it's a
anything
phenomenal
like that.
book, but it's not Greg McKeown because he's essentialism is Greg McKeown. But I can't remember the name of the guy who did it. That's concept of that book is that it's what is the one thing that makes everything else either obsolete or significantly less effort, and that is those 3 things. So there's always going to be something that branding exercise is the one thing, because then you come on a podcast like this, I know exactly who my niche is, I know everything to say because I'm pulling from like a sheet in my mind of what it is. So your marketing, your content, everything else, it's going to have target, it's going to have purpose. Every time you fire an arrow with every video, it's going to hit. Versus, I watched some videos on YouTube or on Instagram and I liked them and I'm going to copy them. And so I'm going to do that. And that's how we end up with making like memes. Memes suck. Don't do memes, but like memes and funny videos and weird videos and rubbish like that. That's how we end up with that. And then we go, it doesn't work. And then social media doesn't work. It doesn't work because you've not spent the time to understand the message. And I'll stop talking and I'll let you kind of, if anything you want to do that. But like, that's the first thing I would do with people before we would look at the 3Cs kind of concept.
Definitely. And I think what's really important there is actually they need to have done a level of business first, do that exercise. And so if you're really starting out, pick what you think is going to take place, but make sure you redo it once you've got some customers who've gone start to end, because it's the ones that drop off aren't your niche.
Yeah, at the beginning, people get like I do a lot of content. I know you do. You've done some on YouTube as well, like for new people. The thing I say to like new advisors all the time is, I'm like, you don't really, none of this stuff applies to you. You just have to go out and just work. When they're like, how do I get work-life balance? You don't. How do I, like you don't. Like that's why I say I can work with you probably 2-3 years in, and you've now done it, and you've now got something to actually work with. But at the beginning, you just literally just got to throw as much at the wall and hope it sticks. You got to work late, do this. It doesn't, you've got to do all those things. If it means cutting fees to drop, well, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not precious about stuff like that. At the beginning, you got to go out, but eventually you do have to take stock and go, okay, cool. Now let's refine this into a more streamlined message that's then going to now resonate. And when you get it right, like it's like an echo, like it resonates. It's significantly easier to do stuff, and it's like that it's one, it's easier to talk, but also the leads get faster, and everything is just easy. The discovery calls, the content when you talk to people in like this, everything gets easy because you know what you're doing. You know the 6 main pain points, and you know what the product is, and you know what your niche is, and it feels woo woo. But again, it's just not like, and again, I was a big skeptic of it for a long, long time, but it's worked for me, and it's worked for many other people I've worked with. It's really, really valuable.
And I think it is that 12 to 24 month period where then people start to lose faith. But the 24 month was more like 36, where it's the 3-year mark. That's where it starts to really change, because you're getting some of your 2-year fixes come back through, and that's when it really takes place. So often, we'll speak to mortgage advisors, and obviously there's the income side. When you start the job for the first time, you've got to cover yourself whilst, the mortgage pipeline takes through and stuff like that. But it is actually you're in it for 3 years before it gets good.
Yeah.
Well,
for sure.
It gets great. It can be good.
3 to 5 years, I always say to people, is that kind of like, depending on the fixed rate periods and stuff, it is like, 3 to 5 years. But then it's phenomenal if you've got it right.
Yeah.
It is like a license to print money. It really is. Like, I know it sounds silly, but like it is. If you do it right. If you don't do it right, it's the worst job in the world. But if you do it right, it's phenomenally lucrative and very rewarding, both financially and also personally, to help people. It's a brilliant job. Like, I think it's a phenomenal job to do, but it's a massive buy-in in regards to time and trust. You've got to leap and really hope.
And let's say someone's hit that 3-year mark, it's going well, they've done your brand exercise, they understand their niche. Where do they take their marketing from there then?
Okay, so this is where the 3 C's thing comes in, which is where 3 C's concept comes into this, and then it's like platforms and stuff. But the 3 C's concept is something I've been doing for years, and weirdly I did it myself, and it was based off, you talked about Simon Sinek. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, and I based it off of his like what, how, why kind of situation, the start with why. And I was thinking, because I just like that visual of like, everybody does this, but you should do it this way. And so for a while, I was like trying to analyze, okay, so how does that apply to marketing in social media more specifically, but in anything, and how do I see it? So I noticed, I haven't really spoken about this much publicly for a long time, which is really great, but there are 3 C's in successful kind of lead generation. And they are clarity, consistency, and then creativity. They're the 3 C's. So what that means is clarity of message, consistency in delivering that message, and then the creativity is, how do you appear differently? How do you get your personality into it? And that can be a range of different things. Now, if we take it on I'm assuming your listeners will know what Simon Sinek is, but if not, you should go and watch the YouTube, the TED talk of The Power of Why. It's phenomenal, and it'll make a lot more sense. But what I noticed, and have noticed even more since I first created this, was the vast majority of people struggling to do or go on, be successful online, but they couldn't. There was a reason why. So what it was if we think about it like a circle, what people would do in order is they would come in and they would go, the first thing when I'd speak to them is they say, I want my videos to be different. I want to be, or I want my content, I want to be different. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want it to be different. I want people to stop and watch it, and I want it to be like that. Now, what's that? That's creativity. So they'd come in at creativity. Now, what happens with creativity is a time sink. It takes a lot of time to be creative and a lot of skill, which advisors at the time, if you've never made any video or any piece of content or any graphic design, and all of a sudden you're watching a YouTuber who's got 1 million, 2 million, 3 million subscribers, or a TikTok or an Instagram, and you think you're going to have the same, it's that, TikTok, Instagram versus reality kind of situation. It isn't going to happen. So it becomes a huge time sink, and then you don't end up doing it. So they come in at creativity. If they're really lucky, they might be consistent for a little bit. But when you come in at creativity, their clarity is off. There's no clarity in what they're trying to do, which is the brand thing we were speaking about. You need to know the brand, the story, the niche, the offer. You need to know those things. And so when people come in with this, and it's the secret word when I know they're going that way, is, as I said, I want to be different. They're coming in at creativity first. Now, what that means is they're coming in being, which what we spoke about all the stuff is very connected. So it's like about the idea of, if you chase the money will run away. But if you do the right thing for the client, you'll do very well. When you come in at creativity of, I want to be different, I don't want to be like everybody else and all that type of stuff, then you end up, it's all about you. It's selfish. There is no thought in your mind. And people will get real butthurt about me talking about this, but that's fine. I don't care. Is that like, that's what that is. So when you want to pay a fancy videographer to come and sit down and shoot a load of videos in a space to make you look really good, and then it is purely you saying, I want to be validated as looking like the Diary CEO because I'm successful. You're not thinking about your client, because you wouldn't spend that money on doing that. That's not what you should do, because you're leading with you. It's about you. Instead, if we flip it on its head and we start with clarity, so we know, who are we trying to reach? Know what their problem is. We know what they are. We know who they are. We know what we need to help them with. And we have a duty of care to help them by spreading information for that specific person. We then get really consistent at creating a clear message. So we get consistent at creating a clear message. Doesn't need to be good, just needs to be clear. So it can be a phone, talking to it. It can be mistakes. It could be 2 minutes long, 4 minutes long. It should really be 30 seconds. But if it isn't, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be consistent and clear. Now, the funny thing about this is, if it's consistent and clear, you don't ever actually have to do the creative side. So if you're somebody, listen to this, which many mortgage brokers are, like, oh, I don't really want to do that. You don't have to. You can make a crappy piece of content every single day, and post it out, but as long as it's clear and it's consistent, you will win. And you will get more leads that over time, probably like you said, 3 years. It's a very compounding thing, but 1 year, 2 years, it gets bigger and bigger, because you are now leading with the client first. It is selfless. It is all about the client. It's all about, okay, I don't really like making these videos. I'm uncomfortable making these videos. Not me, I don't mind. But it's like, I'm uncomfortable making these videos. I don't feel good about it. But I have a real need and desire to do it because I have to, because my clients need it. They need this information. Then, if you want to, you can then be creative. Because once you're creative, that's the cherry on the top. And they are the people who they are the ones who will blow up and be mega successful. But the funny thing is, there's very few people who actually are that in our industry, because they don't need to be. Because once you do, if you're just clear and consistent, you get 99% of the work. The creativity stuff is just all about you then. It's about how am I myself? It's more self-indulgent. And don't get me wrong, that's where I'm at now. Nearly 7 years into coaching and doing this, I was saying this to you before we start recording, I'm now playing around with different recordings, like setups and different things, and maybe spending more time on a video than I would before. But for literally nearly 7 years, I sat in front of a camera and had a question in front of me, just answered it. The questions were all things, the one, I have no interest in talking about, and two, and two, there was no editing on it. It's just straight to the camera. Let's talk. This is what I think. And it's done well. And so is all my clients. And this is that 3 C's concept. If you start with clarity, then consistency, and only then, if you do creativity, you'll do well. But if you do the other way, you might hit some here and there, but your message will be lost. It won't exist. And such a common thing. And it's that, I want to be different. Don't try and be different. Just be more consistent. If you're more consistent and clear, they'll win every single time. Like, even if they've edited their video like Spielberg, you're still going to win.
And what tips have you got to stay motivated during that consistent period? Because it can take weeks, months, maybe even years to get inquiries through. And that's hard when you're
it's years.
spending your time putting out content, not getting anything back, from a business perspective.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated?
So there's a couple of things with it. First one, so there's a couple of ones. So the first one I'd say is, and this is like, I heard this on Alex Hormozy, so I'll give him credit for this one, but I love it, which is he said, don't think poor me, think poor everybody else who has to do the same thing. So remember that every other advisor that is trying to do this is going through the same thing. Whether they tell you they are or they're not, they'll be, I've got all this business. Having done this a long time, takes about 18 months to 2 years to get a consistent lead flow from social media, and only if you're doing it in that clear and consistent way. So remember that the work you do, everybody else has to walk that path too. But they don't just have to walk them. We go, oh, they have to walk that path because it's easier. No, it's harder because it's already saturated as well, because you've already saturated it or someone else. So there's always a motivation in my mind for that. And I said to people, the other one, truthfully, and this is the one that I think me and you spoke about this when we had our little catch up, when we had our first chat, was if this is where people don't really like the way I say it, just suck it up and get on with it. Is my honest answer to that. When people go, oh, I'm just not really feeling it, it's like a 2-minute job. I can pick up my phone right now. I could do it right now, but I won't because I could literally pick up my phone right now and do a video on it. And I do this with my clients, and then I'm like, done, post. That's it. But we over egg it. Like it's some sort of massive thing. And the reality, and that's a huge reality of the situation. I do this a lot with myself, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't have time to do your workout. What? You can't do 3 sets of 10 push-ups in the morning. Are you joking? It's less than 2 minutes. It's these stupid things that we frame in ourselves. If you want to be a mortgage broker in 2025, 2026 and beyond, you're going to have to. The kind of the time of and I think that's the bit that people need to think about. It's do you want to be a broker? And you'll get, and then this again will ruffle feathers, and they'll go, no, I've done it great. But it's that Eric Hoffer quote, in a world that, in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, whereas the learned will be perfectly equipped for the world that no longer exists. In other words, if you can sit there and say you built have built some phenomenally big mortgage companies, and it's so successful, and I'm very good for them, but that's not the world that we're about to go into. We're moving into a highly AI-dominated world that in 10 years' time will be unrecognizable, probably even 5. And so if you want to be the learner to inherit that world, you need to be on the front of that wave, and that is branding, being yourself. People are going to buy from people more so now than ever before, because people are going to want human connection in a world of AI ramping up. But they're also going to want the human connection with the speed of AI. That's what's going to happen. And so the people who are on social media, who've built brands and real brands, are going to take everybody else's business. That's what you're going to see happen over the next 5 to 10 years, is that, I think anyway, is that it's the same amount of business is going to exist, but you're going to hear a lot of advisors moan saying there's no business. No, AI tools are going to allow companies like the Mortgage Mum, it's when I say Tucker, companies that they can now can build such a brand that can deal with the influx in leads, because there'll be such good systems and processes that require just one person to be the face. You will see that. It's the Martin Lewis thing. We're going to see many micro Martin Lewises who are going to be like the celebrities. And one of my friends who's a big YouTuber calls it the king of the smallest hill. They're going to see these big, these small, but like Pete Matthews is one of those, they're going to be powerhouses. And if you are not doing video, then you may as well retire. You're going to jump. I genuinely believe that. I think it's I had it with someone, and I had it with somebody. We spoke about it on our kind of initial chat before. I had someone message me a couple of days ago, and they're new advisors. I've got a lot of new advisor content as well. And they're like, oh yeah, but some people are scared of going on camera. And I'm literally I'm crying into my coffee, get over it. I don't care. That's fine. You're just one other person that all the top people aren't going to have to worry about. That's it. I really do think that's the kind of nature of the beast. And I do think there's too much of this. If you've got imposter syndrome, no, just suck it up and pick up the phone, for God's sake. So that's my advice on that one.
Well, I'm not going to ask you to elaborate more on that because
Mate, it's a very not touchy subject. It's a brilliant subject. But I do think, I'll give you one thing on that. The way I know this is because my very first business idea before I did this was I created a business called Camera Shy Creative that my wife then took over as a social media person in the end. But like I created it up as a Camera Shy Creative, and the goal was to be a coach to teach people how to get over the fear of being on camera, because I was a professional performer before I did mortgages. And once I realized, I get on a call and go, just stop moaning about it and just do it. There wasn't really much else to talk them through, and that's where it came from. So this has been a very long thing. It's always been that way. Like I was like, oh, okay, there's not, yeah, and that's what I mean. I don't mind if you feel that way. You're watching this and you're listening to it and you feel that it's cool. I'm just not going to be the person who validates that, because I believe you, whoever's listening to this, can do it. There's nothing. I am not better than you because I do it. I'm just as bad as you guys are, and so you can do it. So anyone telling you can't is talking out of their backside.
And stop researching it if you then are going to talk yourself out of it, because just go spend your time on something else.
Pick it up, or just go and speak to clients, and then make money until your competitor swallows it up. But just don't feed into it. Just do it. And tag me in it if you want help. Just not help, but do a video and then tag me, and I'll go thumbs up, and that's it. But I'll go, well done. You don't have to. Don't worry about it. I'll give you some encouragement. If you do your first video, tag me and send me a message that says my first video. I'll say, well done. That's good. Now do 1 million more.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's been a jam-packed session with you, Ash. It's gone off on different tangents than I possibly expected, but all very, very good tangents. Very, very informative, and I definitely would recommend people, really take time to just have a little bit of a reflect as to what do they want. That mapping of the business, we talked about that, growing it. Well, if you're going to grow it, really do ask yourself some hard questions there. Are you willing to let go? Are you willing to put processes in place? As you mentioned, that framework, the 3 C's, that's fantastic, but that all comes back to processes and frameworks, doesn't it? So really do have a long, hard think if you want to take it seriously. But yeah, I'll make sure, links to your stuff is in the description box below. Anyone in the mortgage industry probably has come across your content before, because you've been doing this for many years now, consistently.
Clearly and consistently. Maybe not creatively, but clear and consistent.
There we are. Don't worry, the creativity can come later on.
Maybe.
But yeah, really, really appreciate your time today. Hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. Well, thank you to those listening, and please do subscribe to receive further videos that hopefully will be as inspiring as this one today.